Alright, so in this video, I will be talking about what my topic has been this whole semester for interpersonal communication. So firstly, we had to look at what we wanted to change about ourselves, whether that affected our language or not. My topic had to correlate with anger and aggression just because for the past few years, I've noticed bigger changes, basically, in the way I look at everything, how I react to anybody talking to me. I've noticed that I've been more agitated. I get more irritable over the slightest things that had never bothered me before. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So anger and aggression is a completely natural thing. It affects billions of people worldwide. On average, 8.9% of adolescent Americans and adult Americans deal with some form of anger and aggression. Now, treatments for this vary through medications, therapy, anything that you can think of, really. Many have researched this topic, and it's mainly been focused on more within the past about 150 years, I would say. The top two researchers, though, are psychologist Albert Bandura and Robert Sears. Now, both very famous psychologists on their behalves, both have many awards, doctorates, anything that make them recognizable. They have come up with many theories. Both of them, even though they studied the same general topic of aggression and just frustration, they focused on completely different components to that. While, let's say, for example, Robert Bandura, his research focused way more on the psychological side of anger and aggression in an individual than Sears. Bandura also focused mainly on adolescence because that's where anger and aggression are most seen commonly. For spikes, you see it more with people who are late middle school to early high school. And he didn't really, in his research, say what age it was most prominent in. It was mostly heavily speculated that it was high school range when anger and aggression took more of a toll on an adolescent than anywhere else in their life. Sears mainly focused on the foundations surrounding anger and aggression. His big thing was, is anger and aggression a learned trait? So they have become just the staple. They have set the ground and building platforms for anger and aggression studies. Now, their researches are famous among psychologists today. They are the reason that more funding has gone into anger and aggression research and just studies. They also are used in many theories. The top 3 theories right now in the world about anger and aggression are that that aggression is social. It's a learned trait. So when you're very little, around the toddler age, that's when you start to gain a part of yourself that you learn. So you learn anything from anybody. If you see a woman hit her husband, that's something that a little kid might reenact, and it doesn't matter with who. So that's what the general focus on the social construct theory is on that. It's just that it's a learned trait through just watching. The next is genetic. So for genetic, they're thinking it's possible that anger and aggression to some level is brought through the genes of either parent. In my case, mine might be because my mother grew up in a very rough childhood, youngest of 5, parents not the best in the world. Don't want to delve too deep into that, just for her sake. but she lashes out because that's all she's known. So that's part of a social construct that I probably just exhibit that. And if she has it, it's just bolted into her DNA. It was probably passed down to me and my sisters, which is very common and can be seen in my younger sister as well, who has very hard anger issues over certain subjects. Next, the final theory is just all mental. It could just be, and this is probably the most focused on theory, because it is found out that that just two examples of mental illness, like ADHD, has been causing huge impacts, and those with ADHD have been known to have more prominent aggression levels in certain individuals. There's also just parts of aggression that show stuff through mental illness, like bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is probably another really big one in the world right now because of how many people are being told that they have bipolar disorder. Doesn't matter what level, they will always have some form of aggression because that's just how their brain was wired. And then there's even greater chances of it as well. And there's just many research studies on what causes this. For mental, it could also be because there is a named disorder that just focuses mainly on aggression and anger. And it's mainly found in childhood, which is very surprising to the fact that not many children exhibit a lot of anger and aggression once they reach a certain age. Many people just mentally, on the mental side, try keeping it in by use of drugs or therapy, where they don't show that. For the drug wise, it's just seducing, it's just suppressing, really, the anger and aggression inside somebody, when in therapy, you can let it out. Many people, though, aren't comfortable letting all that out because they're afraid that they're going to say something hurtful to the therapist and or have to go into a psychiatric ward to figure out what is going on. So the topics of anger and aggression is just really that. Anger and aggression. You gotta find, nobody knows where it originates from. We know what causes it, but we don't know if that's the definitive cause for people to be angry all the time. Some people are just naturally more angry. Some people hold it in and then just burst. It's a very common thing in the world that needs to be studied way more than it already is. And I feel anger and aggression is part of civilization no matter what. Because it's in a language. People who are angry use more you language. So they try rejecting blame onto somebody else than on themselves. And that's really what I found this semester, because it's such a expanding, broad topic that I hope that one day when I look into this even more, I can pinpoint and see what the major key points are in an anger and aggression individual. Thank you.